Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for Jared Anderson vs Oleksandr Teslenko, which was on the undercard of Lomachenko and Comey. So this was an impressive performance by Jared Anderson. He truly is impressing in the heavyweight division, turning heads, and this here a second round stoppage. And Anderson came in with confidence. You can see here on screen, came in with the pimp suit, and he displayed that confidence before the fight, during the fight, and after the fight. We'll come to those comments after the fight in a bit. But the 2 rounds of action, so Anderson tried to sort of flummox Teslenko in that opening round. He came out as a southpaw, and it clearly worked because Anderson was able to, from the jump, just had the speed advantage. He was out jabbing Oleksandr Teslenko, landing with regularity, and he was landing his straight left. So he was finding a home for that regularly, and Teslenko was only having minimal success, unable to keep Anderson off him. And that was the trouble in this fight. Anderson just became progressively more confident as that first round wore on, landing bigger shots as the round wore on, and the power punches were really starting to take a toll. But the problem for Teslenko was he looked stiff, he looked slow, he just couldn't get his head out of the way, just wasn't moving his head, and it was a perfect target for the end of Jared Anderson's fist there, because he was finding a home for those fists on Teslenko's body and head. Second round, Anderson comes out just unloading a lot of power punches. The jab started to be put away, and Anderson ended up landing a big right hand from the orthodox position, and it sort of grazed past the glove of Teslenko, landed around the temple region, and Teslenko was down. And you could tell he was hurt. The way that he fell, it didn't look good, and he was able to get up, beat the count. The referee said, look, move over here. He couldn't respond to the command. So the referee, nope, that's it, waves it off. So Oleksandr Teslenko dispatched in 2 rounds by Jared Anderson, who moves to 11-0. Impressive performance here. And I've been saying all of 2021, and I think some of 2020, this guy is must watch. He is the #1 prospect in the heavyweight division right now. And what I mean by that is the guys that are coming through that are sort of at a certain stage, they've only been on the scene for a year or two. He's the one that is separating himself. I'm not talking about Dubois, Yoka, or they've been on the scene for 5 years. They're not really prospects anymore. Jared Anderson is separating himself from his peers, and he's been moved well. They are giving him the right fights at the right time at Top Rank right now. So he's being moved well, getting the sort of tests that he needs and the opponents, because Oleksandr Teslenko is a decent fighter. Once himself was a prospect of some regard. So he was sort of seen in a certain light, sort of gone off track, and on the strength of the performance in there tonight, just unable to hang with Anderson, who's going places. So Jared Anderson, 2022 awaits, and I'm really looking forward to what, could be happening for him in 2022, because he is, based on the sort of level of fights, he's out every couple of months, basically. He's already built up a resume inside 2 years of 11-0. And you've got some decent names on there. Rodney Hernandez, Kingsley eBay, now Oleksandr Teslenko. Right fights, right steps at the right time. And I'm looking forward to what 2022 can bring, because you might start to see towards the end of next year those names like a Carlos Takam, because he will be ready for those sorts of fights in another year's time. Between now and then, it's about working through the sort of steps to get there. And he is going to need to face some guys that he can take him some rounds. Because obviously there's a question mark heading into this one with Teslenko. Despite him being a decent fighter, he'd been inactive. We hadn't really seen much of him since he got beaten a couple of years ago by Shaundell Winters. So there were questions, and I think most observers heading into this thought that it was going to be a case Anderson was going to win. It was just going to be a case of when and how good would he look. And he answered both those questions emphatically. Second round stoppage, it was a very impressive performance. after the fight, he sort of said that, look, I came out southpaw because I wanted to confuse him. And actually, Teslenko's corner had told the ring announcer, yes, they weren't expecting that. So it was a tactic that worked, paid dividends, and again, and we've seen this before in different fights, it showed the versatility of Anderson and what he's capable of. I thought maybe he was a little bit loose and reckless defensively in the southpaw stance. He was taking a couple of shots, but nothing of too much note. But when he came back to orthodox and got some full leverage on that right hand, obviously, and that was a partially blocked shot too that ended up flooring Teslenko. He's got some serious power as well. So not only is he quick and athletic, he's explosive too with those power punches. So there's a lot to like about Jared Anderson. And he was also asked a question by the ring announcer, are you the next great American heavyweight? And given the sort of swag that he'd shown before the fight, during the fight, and parts of that interview after the fight, I was expecting he was going to say yes, but he said, look, it's still a question. I know some people are just going to want to see me prove that right or prove it wrong, but I am going to keep performing and basically do a job and, get that crown eventually. But he didn't say he was at the moment, but I think in terms of the prospects coming through, not just in the American sphere, I think in heavyweight boxing, he's the number one prospect at and I say in the truest term of prospect, not guys that are sort of fringe contenders like Dubois, Joyce, Hrgovic, Yoka, etc. But Anderson is the number one in my view right now. And there's other guys that are coming up behind, Justice Hooney, Bakadir Jalalov and the like, but I have Anderson out in front at the moment for me. How about you? What does 2022 hold for him? Who would you like to see him fight? And realistic fights. I don't mean sort of, a big name contender, because there's going to be steps between now, a level of a Teslenko, and a true contender fight. It's what is that step or steps going to be? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.